Hi guys, glory be to God. Welcome to the Kingdom Woman channel where living for God is practical. I'm Mariah. Thanks for tuning in, So yeah, I'm outside of the gym, about to go get my swole on. I'm telling you, man, I'm about to come out like a whole entire unit, just blah, 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 blah. No, I'm just playing. No, for real though. Look, I want to come touch base with y'all, or I went to the gym. And as I mentioned, I had touched on kingdom principles in my previous videos, but now I want to elaborate in greater detail some of the points that I have spoke on in the past, and I just wanted to touch on kingdoms this week. That's what I'll be touching on in my next series of videos, kingdoms. And that's because regardless of how you see the world, it's important to see the world through kingdoms. Through the kingdoms, the Most High God governs and rules and reigns from his kingdom, right? So if we don't, you know what I'm saying, we have to get to a point where we are thinking about things through the mind of Christ and seeing things the way he sees things. You know what I'm saying? If he rules and reigns from his own kingdom, then we should be able to recognize his kingdom and the kingdoms that exist outside of his kingdom, right? And so, while the inspirational messages are great, you know what I'm saying, it's important to understand kingdoms. So this week we're going to focus on kingdoms. And in this video, I just wanted to touch on the fact that there are different kingdoms in the world. As I mentioned already, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. I was just playing. God, the Most High God, his kingdom, it's called heaven. That's his kingdom, the kingdom of heaven. It's a holy, righteous kingdom where he rules and reigns with all authority and power in his hands, right? And as the creator, he made a bunch of different stuff, including the angels, right? But Lucifer led a third of the angels to wage war against God in his kingdom, right? Because Lucifer was interested in exalting himself above the Most High God and making a kingdom for himself, right? Which he, kind of did, but he'll never be able to exalt himself over the Most High God. Now, he does have a kingdom, is what I'm saying. In his effort to wage war against the Most High God, he did create a kingdom. He created a kingdom of darkness. Because outside of God, if you get cut off from God, there is nothing but darkness. There is nothing but evil. There is no light because God is the light. You know what I'm saying? So anything outside of God in the kingdom of heaven is darkness. It's sin. All right, so there are really only two kingdoms. The kingdom of heaven and the kingdom of darkness that Satan presides over. Satan is the ruler of the kingdom of darkness. Now, he is accompanied by the angels that waged war with him. And, the ranks and levels of spiritual wickedness that we see in Ephesians 6 and 12. Right? So yeah, it's crazy because religion will have you to believe that, serve the system and then you'll die and you'll go to heaven then. When in reality, you can live in heaven right now if that's what you really want to do. You don't have to die to experience heaven. You can see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Now, you can't live and exist in heaven any old kind of way. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, if that's what you want, you got to give up your life to obtain a life in the kingdom of heaven. But the system of religion, because there is power in God's people, you know what I'm saying? Because we have been predestined to accomplish different things in the earth realm that go against the kingdom of darkness, things have been established and set in place to prevent that. And one of the plots and the schemes of the tricks of the enemy has been to spread misinformation among God's people and to make them remain in a place of unawareness and sleep. You know what I'm saying? Some people know what's going on because they sell their souls. You know what I'm saying? Everybody that preach is not legit. So some people know because they sell their souls. But you know, on a good chunk of religious people don't see outside of you know, going to church on Sunday, Bible study on Wednesday, choir rehearsal on Friday. You know, they don't see outside of that. And, you know, a lot of that has to do with the systems that are established and in place. And, you know, having to answer to, you know, in the system of religion, there's a rank system, you know what I'm saying? And people believe that you have to answer to somebody, and so because of that rank system that is established within the institution of religion, the higher up you go, the closer you get to Ephesians 6 and 12. And, you know, if the spiritual wickedness that you are operating through is related to the system of religion, then the goal is for you to inspire people, keep them asleep, and waste their time. Tell them that they are just going to die and go to heaven and meet God that way. And so that's the message that has been pushed to people. People, they don't teach the kingdom at all. People don't even understand the kingdom. People don't even understand the concept of the kingdom, the gospel of the kingdom, or nothing like that. And that's why. But as far as kingdoms are concerned, you know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to lay the foundation for kingdoms right now. There's only 2 kingdoms. But when you consider the world and what's going on with the world, those principalities rule over regions and preside over regions, maintain and execute control and authority over regions until their time has come. And this is the way it's always been. The people who are closest to these powers and principalities that rule and reign and govern over specific regions and areas are in covenant with them for whatever they agreed to go in covenant for. Could be money, could be wealth, could be power, could be a combination of all these things. It could be that for generation after generation after generation after generation, this is just what it has been. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of that going on too. And so, you know, in that case, then, you know what I'm saying, there are different kingdoms. Now, the Bible talks about a lot of different kingdoms and breaks down a lot of different kingdoms. But when you read it, a lot of times people tend to read the Bible like it's a book, a fairy tale book about dead people that did a lot of stuff back in the day. And they can't use their critical thinking skills to be able to apply what they have read into what's going on right now. You know what I'm saying? They just take a word, they read it, They swing them around a little bit, hum a little bit, and then they're going on about their business until next Sunday they get another word, whatever. But kingdoms, you know what I'm saying, kingdoms. It's important to understand when you're thinking about the concept of kingdoms, it's important to understand that there's only two kingdoms. Kingdom of heaven, kingdom of darkness. But within the kingdom of darkness, there are a bunch of kingdoms. A bunch of kingdoms within the kingdom of darkness. And we know that there are a bunch of kingdoms within the kingdom of darkness because when Jesus was in the wilderness, Satan took him up and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and told him that if he bowed down and worshiped him, that he would give him all of those kingdoms. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not sure why, you know what I'm saying, but this is the world that we actually live in, and this is the way we should view the world, through that lens, to understand that there are kingdoms established throughout the world with different rulers. Satan presides over them all. Even though somebody is beneath him, Satan presides over them all. And this is why he had the authority to offer them all to Jesus. But the Bible ends in all the kingdoms of the whole entire world being given over to Jesus in the first place. So, you know what I'm saying? That form of temptation, it was futile because it's all going to be his anyway. It already is his. He's already been victorious. But we just haven't become, the manifestation of it has not taken place in time. But the reality of it is set in stone, if that makes sense. So yeah, kingdoms. You know what I'm saying? So in your specific region, it could be a little bit of this and a little bit of that going on. This is why you see certain amounts of crime prevalent in certain places. This is why you see this taking place in a specific area and it doesn't take place in another area. Something else is going on in another area because it's a different power ruling over that area. It's a different principality ruling over that area. A different covenant has been established over that area. You know what I'm saying? And you know, you have to understand the world through kingdoms and understand that there are kingdoms to even begin to accept the kingdom gospel. If you don't understand that there are kingdoms, there is a kingdom of heaven. The Most High God is the ruler of that kingdom. There is none above him nor beside him. You know what I'm saying? Then we can begin to understand and accept kingdom gospel. Hey, Tony. I gotta ask him about the oysters. That's Tony from the restaurant. And they be having a good oysters. So, you know, I'll be having to be nice to Tony because when I come in the restaurant, I want my oysters on point. But yeah, so kingdoms. So yeah, that's what I wanted to touch bases on. I wanted to give y'all some examples of kingdoms that are talked about in the Bible so that you can understand a little bit better. Egypt was established as a kingdom. And when I refer to that and I say all these different things, so there is a person, a physical person. Typically, there's a physical person like a king presiding over a kingdom. In Egypt, they had a pharaoh, but the pharaoh served a little g god. In Egypt, in ancient Egypt, they served Ra. That was their supreme deity. But Egypt had a polytheistic religion. There were many little g gods that they reached out to. You know what I'm saying? And so that just helps you understand how these covenants worked, how these kingdoms work, how these structures are established. You know what I'm saying? And we can see in scripture the examples of how God consistently showed his authority and showed his supremacy over the little g gods of these kingdoms by all the stuff he did. Like he did it over and over and over again, nonstop. So yeah, Babylon, the god of Baal, we already know all of that. Greece, Rome, so when you are considering Greece and Greek mythology, it's a polytheistic society. You know what I'm saying? And they reverence little g gods. And you have to understand, these little g gods, when these angels fell, they fell with their power. So they would reach out to these gods that would give them power or share power with them. They would sell their souls for it. And then they would have a certain amount of power to execute over the world. And so that's the world we live in. God has been intentional and consistent throughout time about displaying his supremacy and authority over every kingdom, over every little g god, to any king that would exalt himself over the Most High God, over the King of Kings. And that's just the world we live in. I know sometimes we like to think about our everyday life, and you know what I'm saying, we have to begin to use our critical thinking skills when we read in the Bible and apply what we read to our life. You know what I'm saying? We have to begin to, you know, if we're like, oh, let the mind of Christ be in me, like, you know what I'm saying, we have to begin to see things the way he sees it. And that's how you know. That's how you know you have the mind of Christ. You see things the way he sees it. You can see his point of view in everything. You can see your point of view, but you can see his point of view and how he sees things in the world. And so, you know what I'm saying, that's the foundation I wanted to lay for kingdoms. And you know, outside of the kingdom of heaven, traditionally, all the kingdoms that were outside of Israel were outside of the Jewish kingdom that belonged to God. That was just the kingdom God chose. You know, you see little g gods, you see all types of magicians and sorcerers, and you see astrologers, and you see all this different stuff taking place. And for some reason, people don't want to believe that this stuff is taking place, but it never stopped. And that's part of putting the church to sleep and just feeding you an inspirational message so that you don't know what's going on in the world. If you don't know what's going on, you're powerless to do anything about it. You're powerless to execute your authority over it. And you have been given power over Satan and his whole entire army. You have power over all of these principalities and all of these magicians and all of these sorcerers and everything they doing. You have power over it. But if you are too scared to acknowledge spiritual things, you don't have power over anything because you're scared. But God didn't give us a spirit of fear. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, that's a part of it. You have to recognize the world through kingdoms to even begin to accept the kingdom gospel. So when Jesus was like, repent, for the kingdom is at hand, you know what I'm saying? This is why they were following him, because they thought he was going to resurrect a kingdom to take over. But God is spiritual. God does not care about these things that man build up. Like, that's foolishness to him. These little things we care about, these making a king, like all these being a king and exalting yourself and all that, that's foolishness to the Lord. There's already a king. There's already a kingdom. Read the end. Read the end of the Bible so you know there's already, all of that is already established. So being a king, making a kingdom, you know, the Bible already says that any kingdom outside of the kingdom of heaven is getting taken from the kingdom of darkness and given to God's people. Take it from the kingdom of darkness and give it over to Jesus. If it's being taken and given to God's people, it's going to be the people who reverence and respect and love God, love Jesus. So it's all being given over to the Lord. So, you know, these things that people care about, if you are really in the kingdom, these things that take place in the world, they don't mean anything to you. It's not that God, you know, if you seek him, his kingdom and his righteousness, he can give you anything. So it's not that, you know, you like, that's another video. But kingdoms, you know what I'm saying? Begin to see the world in kingdoms. There are kingdoms talked about all throughout the Bible. And I'm not sure why we don't acknowledge the world for the, like, because the Bible tells us how the world is set up and ran by kingdoms, kings, and little g gods. Now, these people may, the names of people in the Bible may be dead, but the spiritual wickedness and the principalities are not. They just establish new covenants with people who aren't dead, and they carry on. And it could be a situation where this principality has been in covenant with a family for generations. So when you see families who have crazy wealth generationally, you know what I'm saying? And it, you know, it's revealing itself. It's revealing itself. It's revealing itself. So kingdoms: Egypt, Babylon, Assyria, Canaanite city-states, Philistia, Moab, Persia, Greece, and Rome. Those were the examples that I had that you can look at. All these different kingdoms had different kings, and within these they all serve little g gods. So you have kings in covenant with spiritual wickedness in high places, rulers, powers. You know what I'm saying? With these entities come power. They wouldn't have magicians and stuff running around if it wasn't no power. There's power, but we have power over all of those things. But if you're asleep and you're worried about stuff that doesn't matter, how can you execute your authority over anything? God can't give you anything. If you don't like the person sitting next to you, how could you go and take territory at a kingdom level? You don't even recognize kingdoms. So, yeah. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down in the comment section. I might make another video just for you. I'm about to go get my swallow.